right, let's talk van life. It sounds thrilling, right?
Mhm.
Hitting the open road, but I think for a lot of us, it can also be a little intimidating.
Definitely. There are a lot of what ifs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what happens if you break down? Where do you find a bathroom? And what about staying warm?
I mean, let's be real. Some of us even worry about, serial killers.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got Darren from the Odyssey Camper blog here today, and he's going to help us tackle those anxieties.
He's actually driven 75,000 miles on the road, so.
He's got some stories and some real-world advice. So I think the first one, and probably the biggest for a lot of people, is what if your van just breaks down in the middle of nowhere?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Right, like what do you do? But Darren actually says in all of those miles, he's never had a breakdown.
Really?
Yeah. He stresses how reliable modern vehicles are, especially if you start with a good one and maintain it.
That makes sense. But even with a well-maintained van, things could happen, right?
Of course. Which is why he recommends having a solid roadside assistance plan like AAA or CAA up in Canada.
Oh, yeah, those are good. And don't most insurance companies offer that too? Roadside assistance.
Absolutely. So you've got options. In either way, you're covered for towing, gas, flat tires, jump starts, all of that.
It's like having a safety net.
It is. But, okay, what if you're going way off the grid? No cell service. What then?
That's a good question. I wouldn't want to be stuck out there without any way to call for help.
Totally. So Darren actually recommends a CB radio.
Wait, seriously? Like the ones truckers use?
Yep. It sounds old school, but it could be a lifesaver when there's no cell service. You can chat with truckers, other travelers, even emergency services.
Huh. I never would have thought of that.
Right. It's like a blast from the past. And he even says to look for one with NOAA weather alerts.
Oh, that's smart, especially if you're in a remote area and a storm rolls in.
For sure. Okay, ready to move on to the question everyone's thinking about.
Oh, you mean the bathroom situation?
Exactly. Like, where do you go when you got to go? It's funny, though. Darren actually put a composting toilet in his van. But he said he barely ever uses it.
Really? Why not?
Because when you're on the road, there are bathrooms everywhere. Think about it. Rest stops, Walmart, gas stations, truck stops. He really recommends the big chains.
I would not have thought of Walmart.
Right. And even some fast food places will let you use their restrooms. And if you're at a campground or national park, there are usually pit toilets.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about, if you have to pee in the middle of the night?
That's when a backup plan is key. Darren recommends a jug or an empty Gatorade bottle or even an empty cat litter bottle.
A cat litter bottle?
He says the wider opening is easier to use in the dark.
Ah, okay, I get it.
And for discreet disposal, he uses a tinted water bottle. No one has to know what's really inside.
That's clever. But I feel like those options aren't ideal for women.
Right. For women, he recommends the Go Girl funnel. For those porta potties or questionable restrooms you might find on the road.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that. So it sounds like the bathroom situation isn't as scary as it seems.
Totally. As long as you're prepared and know your options. Now, speaking of feeling fresh, what about showering?
Ah, yeah. Everyone wants to feel clean, even on the road. But it seems tricky in a van.
You would think so, but you'd be surprised at the options. You've got campgrounds, truck stops, a lot of health clubs and laundromats actually have showers too.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Darren even recommends checking out some of the unique ones he's found in places like Quartzsite, Arizona, and West Yellowstone.
Cool. So even if you're not staying in a campground, you've got options.
Exactly. And if your campground doesn't have them, you can usually use the showers for a small fee. But Darren actually has his own DIY shower setup.
Oh, I'd love to hear about that.
It's pretty simple, really. He uses 5-gallon buckets and a USB rechargeable shower pump. Oh, and pro tip, use dark-colored buckets because they heat up faster in the sun.
Nice. That's so resourceful. Okay, we've covered breakdowns, bathrooms, and showers. What's next?
How about this one? Freezing to death.
Whoa, okay, now that sounds serious.
It does. But Darren's actually spent time in his van in below 20-degree weather.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, and he says our bodies will wake us up if we get too cold. He compares it to sleeping next to a dying campfire. You'll wake up when it gets too cold.
Okay, that makes sense. But beyond a good sleeping bag, what else can you do to stay warm?
Layering is key. Warm sleeping bag, an extra blanket, thermal top, heavy socks. He says the biggest problem isn't the cold itself, but the drafts.
The drafts. Yeah, those can be brutal. But how do you stop those in a van?
Foam insulation, weather stripping, thick curtains, things like that. And a small safe space heater when you need it, of course, with proper ventilation.
Good point about the ventilation. Safety first.
Always. All right, ready for a slightly creepier fear?
You mean like bears or mountain lions?
Even creepier.
Yeah.
What about serial killers?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a real fear, even if it's not super likely.
Right. But Darren tackles this head on and even adds a little humor to it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's his take?
Well, he reminds us that statistically, you're way more likely to get in a car accident on the way to a campsite than be attacked by a stranger.
That's true.
And he also points out that statistically, you're more at risk of violence at home from someone you know.
I never thought about it like that. But those statistics don't always help when you're alone and it's dark out, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And Darren admits to feeling creeped out sometimes, too. He actually even added surround cameras to his van.
That makes sense. It's about feeling safe. But it's a good reminder that danger can be anywhere, right?
Exactly. We should always take precautions. So it seems like a lot of these fears are more about perception than reality, right?
Yeah, it seems that way.
With a little preparation and common sense, a lot of those fears go away.
But what about things you can't really prepare for, like extreme weather or getting to a location and just hating it?
Good point. But Darren reminds us that there are always hotels and motels. They're lifesavers if you need a break from the weather or just want to change the scenery.
True, you can always find a hotel.
Exactly. So being flexible is really key to enjoying van life.
It sounds like Darren is all about being realistic, prepared, and open to anything.
He is. And that's what makes van life so great. The freedom to explore, learn, and grow. It's not about checking destinations off a list. It's about savoring the entire journey.
Well said. It's like a journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll continue exploring Darren's tips for making the most of life on the road and how to turn those anxieties into, well, some pretty creative solutions. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're still chatting with Darren from Odyssey Camper, all about van life and those anxieties we all have.
You know, he's really offered some amazing solutions so far.
Like really resourceful, can-do attitude. And speaking of being resourceful, he has some great tips for making the most of life on the road. Like, one thing he emphasizes is being prepared.
Okay, how so?
Well, he says, always have a little cash and at least 2 debit cards.
Debit card.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to be in remote areas where, the card reader might be down or there's spotty internet.
Ah, that makes sense. Always good to have a backup plan.
Totally. And speaking of remote areas, Darren's big into boondocking. His blog and YouTube channel are full of tips on how to find free campsites.
Boondocking, that's basically camping without hookups, right?
Exactly. No electricity, no water, no sewer.
Wow, so you have to be totally self-sufficient.
You do. You need water storage,
Yeah.
a way to generate power and handle waste. But Darren loves it. The solitude, the scenery. He talks about using websites like the Bureau of Land Management or the U.S. Forest Service and apps like Campendium and Free Roam.
Free roam. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good for finding those hidden gems. But of course, sometimes boondocking isn't feasible. Or you just need, a hot shower or laundry.
Right.
So he's got recommendations for campgrounds, RV parks, even some more unusual spots like, staying overnight in a casino parking lot.
My casino parking lot, that's a new one.
Right. Thinking outside the box. And that's what I love about Darren. He's all about getting creative, finding what works for you.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to van life.
Exactly. But beyond the practical stuff, he also talks about the importance of, slowing down and enjoying the journey.
I love that. So easy to get caught up in just rushing to the next place.
I know. He says, take your time. Explore those off-the-beaten-path places. Really immerse yourself in the experience. Don't just rush from one destination to the next.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Right. And his blog posts and videos really capture that. Stunning pictures, great stories. You really feel like you're right there with him.
It sounds like his content is both practical and inspiring.
It is. And he's honest about the challenges, too. Like finding water, dealing with waste, staying safe.
It's good that he doesn't sugarcoat it.
Yeah. He wants people to have realistic expectations and be prepared, for the ups and downs.
It's refreshing to see someone embrace the whole van life experience, the good and the bad.
I agree. And something else I really appreciate about him is his focus on community. He's a big believer in connecting with other van lifers.
Yeah. The van life community has really exploded in recent years.
It has. And his blog and social media are like hubs for people to connect, share tips, offer support. He goes to van life gatherings, encourages his readers to do the same.
Yeah.
It's a great way to meet like-minded people and make friends.
That's awesome. It's great to have that support, especially if you're traveling solo.
For sure. And for those just starting out, feeling overwhelmed,
Mhm.
he says start small.
Start small. What do you mean?
Like, go on weekend trips or short excursions before committing to something long-term.
Oh, like a test run.
Yeah. Get a feel for van life before diving all the way in.
Yeah.
And he really emphasizes that there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just find what works for you.
It's all about figuring out your own style and preferences.
Exactly. So it all comes back to those anxieties we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Darren saying, don't let fear stop you.
It's inspiring how he's created this community and resource for people.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, Darren actually has a final thought to share, something for all of us to think about as we, consider our own van life adventures.
Okay, I'm ready. What is it?
So, remember all those anxieties we talked about? Breakdowns, bathrooms, safety, staying warm.
Yeah, he really had some good advice for all of them.
He did. And that's kind of his point. Like, instead of being scared of those things, think about what solutions you can bring to van life.
Oh, I like that.
Right? Like, it's all about that resourcefulness, that problem solving. We all have something to offer.
And who knows? Maybe someone listening right now will come up with the next great idea for, a super efficient shower or something.
Exactly. That's the cool thing about van life. It's all about learning, discovering, and being creative. You have to adapt, think outside the box, find what works for you.
It's about making it your own, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's what we've learned today. Van life anxiety, they're really just opportunities in disguise.
Big thanks to Darren from Odyssey Camper for sharing his experience.
Yes, thank you, Darren. And if you want more from him, be sure to check out his website, odysseycamper.com, or his YouTube channel, Odyssey Camper.
Lots of great info there, photos, videos, all that.
Definitely. So don't let fear hold you back. Get out there, get creative, and plan your own van life adventure. You never know what you might discover.